Hello and welcome back to the Wasteland. Today we are going to be going over the top 10 pistols in Fallout New Vegas. Now these are going to be non-energy weapon pistols. I'm actually going to be saving energy weapons for their own list that will be showing up later. This is just going to be regular old guns. This list also isn't in any particular order either. Some of these I put on here because they can be a really good value early on. Some of them can be really good in the late game. And some of them can just be really convenient if you go out of your way to get them. So let's begin with our number 10 pick. This is going to be the police pistol. This one you can find all throughout Dead Money. This is the 357 revolver, and this one is just stronger than a regular 357 revolver, where it has a very low requirement of 0 guns and only 4 strength in order to wield effectively. It does pretty decent damage per shot. It does pretty good damage per second. It has above average crit damage with an average crit modifier. It costs very low action points to use, so it's actually really good in a VATS build. It also doesn't weigh that much. And this does count as a regular sneak-in weapon, making it actually pretty efficient if you want to go for Dead Money early on. The only real downside to getting the police pistol is that you do have to go to the Dead Money DLC, which is going to be a full investment because you can't come back from Dead Money whenever you would like. It's not like the Lonesome Rogue, which is the only one that you can actually do that with in Fallout New Vegas. So once you're there, you do have to go all the way throughout Dead Money. However, once you do go throughout Dead Money, you find a lot of 357 rounds, and this can serve as a pretty strong early to mid-game weapon. It does kind of fall off later compared to some other weapons, but it's not going to be bad if you just want to keep it as a backup if you just have a bunch of 357 rounds that you would like to use. Coming in at our number 9 spot, we have the hunting revolver. Going from one revolver to another, but this one is scaled up pretty significantly. This one fires the 45-70 round, which is an extremely powerful round. This one requires 75 guns and 6 strength to wield, so it is a very hefty pistol in order for you to wield. It does always come with a scope, though, which is pretty cool, and there are 2 versions of this. Besides the unique version, there's just 2 versions of the hunting revolver. The standard hunting revolver, which you can find in some places, you can actually find one of these at the Repcon building that's always there, so long as you get through a average lock, I believe. It's right up next to a safe. It isn't in very good condition, but it is a hunting revolver that you can get early on, as well as there's a couple other that you can find throughout the Wasteland. That's just the one that I really remember. You can also buy the Gunrunner's Arsenal version of this, assuming you have that DLC, and that one can be modified, which is pretty good. Unlike other revolvers, this one doesn't hold 6 rounds, this one only holds 5 rounds because of it being 45-70, which is a very big round. This one does really high damage per shot, pretty decent damage per second because of how much damage per shot it does. It has good crit damage as well as a regular crit modifier. Action point costs are kind of high, so it may not be the best for a VATS build. And this actually doesn't weigh very much at only 4. It doesn't have very much item health though, and if you want to throw in the semi-wad cutter rounds into this, it can break it pretty quick. And if you do have the Gunrunner's Arsenal version of this, you can buy 2 upgrades for it. One of them you can buy is a match barrel, which makes it so your gun is more accurate, and I believe it is the most accurate handgun in the game. And you can also have a 6-round cylinder, so it goes from holding 5 rounds to 6 rounds, which is pretty good in most situations. The hunting revolver is definitely more of a mid to end game gun, and it is extremely powerful, especially if you want to make accurate shots at long range, but maybe you don't want to be carrying around a full-sized rifle. This could be a good option, especially if you're doing a challenge run where you can only use one-handed weapons or pistols or something like that. Coming in at number 8, we have Maria. This is Benny's unique handgun. This one is the unique 9mm, and you can take this off of Benny. Fun fact, if you kill Benny with his own handgun, then you also get a Gunrunner's Arsenal achievement, which is worth a decent amount of XP. I like to do this by luring Benny away and then shooting him in the hand with something like the Silent 22, picking this up off him and shooting him. There are plenty of other ways that you could get Benny disarmed from his gun, though, and use it against him. Maria has extremely low requirements, only requiring 0 guns and 2 strength. Shoots the 9mm cartridge, which is readily available throughout the Wasteland. Basically every vendor will sell you 9mm, and you're probably going to find a lot of 9mm, especially into the early game. This one does pretty decent damage per shot, really good damage per second, has a 2x crit modifier, and it has okay crit damage. It also has extremely low action point cost, so it is really good in a VATS build as well. And for a handgun, this one is also pretty accurate. It can't have the extra mods that their standard 9mm can have, like the scope and the extended magazine, but holding 13 rounds is more than enough most of the time for this type of gun, and it makes for a really good mid-game weapon, and it's really good in the late game if you just want to carry it around because you have a lot of extra 9mm. It also doesn't weigh very much, only weighing 1.5 weight, which is pretty low, and it has good item health too, as well as 9mm pistols are super easy to find, so even if you're not going with the jury rigging perk, it's by no means hard to fix up Maria. Coming in at our number 7 spot, we have That Gun. That gun can be found at the Dino Bite Cafe. You can either buy this there, or you can just steal it if you don't have a problem with that. This requires 50 guns and 6 strength, so it is a bit higher on the strength scaling. This one shoots the 5.56 round, which makes it extremely versatile, especially compared to a lot of other pistols. Most other pistol cartridges don't get very many different options. The 5.56 round gets a lot of different options, because you can throw armor piercing into this, you can throw hollow points, 2.23, surplus rounds, whatever it might be, match rounds as well, to make it more accurate. This one does good damage per shot, really good damage per second as well. It has a 2.5 times crit modifier, so it can hit crits pretty often with pretty decent crit damage. Has low action point cost, so once again, very good for a VATS build. Has about the average spread for a handgun, although if you want to load in like match rounds to this, it does make it more accurate, which is kind of cool. And just like the hunting revolver that we talked about, this one doesn't actually hold 6 shots. This one only holds 5 rounds. This one also weighs a decent amount at 5, which is pretty hefty for a handgun. It's not the most compared to plenty of other weapons, so it's not going to be too bad compared to other builds. And it does have good item health too. The main downside is going to be repairing this, although you can repair it with 5.56 pistols, which you can buy off of merchants, assuming you have the Gunner's Arsenal DLC. Otherwise, you're going to need a perk like jury rigging, or you're just going to need to make weapon repair kits. Either way, it shouldn't break super quick, so shouldn't be a huge problem there. Coming in at our number 6 spot, we have the 44 Magnum revolver. The 44 has been a staple in basically all of the Fallout games. I think the 44 has appeared in every single Fallout game so far, and it doesn't disappoint in this game either. This handgun requires 50 guns and 5 strength to wield. This one does pretty good damage per shot, pretty good damage per second, has an average crit modifier, has okay crit damage, not too high action point cost. It's not the most accurate, it's actually a little bit less accurate than some of the other handguns, but it is a really, really cool handgun. This, of course, shoots the 44 Magnum round, which is pretty powerful as well, and you can get the unique version of it that you usually get from handloader without needing the perk handloader. As long as you pass a skill check, you can still get the semi-wad cutters with this, which does make it a little bit more useful, which is kind of nice. This one doesn't weigh very much either at 3.5, and it has very high item health. You can also sneak 44 Magnums into casinos, which is very useful too. The 44 Magnum can also be modified, which can be very useful. It can get a heavy frame, which gives it even more health, giving it the most amount of health out of any handgun in the game, so it takes the longest to break, which can be very useful. Well, I guess it depends on which type of ammunition you're using. And it can also have a scope on it, where if you didn't like the iron sights, you can use the scope. Coming in at our number 5 spot, we have Lucky. Lucky is the unique 357 Magnum, which you can get very early on into the game. You get this inside of Prim. You do need to have 75 lockpicking in order to get into the safe. This is in the Steve Bison Hotel. It's just in the gift shop, I believe. And this is a really, really cool looking gun anyway. It's probably one of my favorite looking guns in Fallout New Vegas. This requires 0 guns and only 3 strength in order to wield effectively. This one does good damage per shot, good damage per second, has a 2.5 times crit modifier with good crit damage. It also has extremely low action point cost, so it's very good in a VATS build, and it has very low spread. It's one of the more accurate handguns. It also doesn't weigh that much, and it has very high item health too, so it takes a long time to break, and 357 revolvers are not very difficult to find at any point in the game. This is probably one of the strongest early game weapons that you can get. It's right up there along like Chance's Knife and Love and Hate. Just some of these weapons that you can snag right out the gate and have a really, really powerful build right away. The only kind of downside to this is that it has a slow reload speed similar to the regular 357. You can make up for that by going with higher agility or the rapid reload perk to reload it a little bit faster, or you could do the other technique of once you're out of ammo or just about out of ammo, switch off of this and then switch back to it and it will be fully reloaded. Coming in at our number 4 spot, we have the mysterious Magnum. This is another really cool looking gun in Fallout New Vegas. You get this from the Lonesome Drifter. You can either steal this off of him, kill him and take it, or you can get him a job, and then if you have enough barter, you can ask him for this as a reward during a quest. This one has a very unique thing about it where whenever you pull it out or put it away, it makes sound effects, which is really cool. This one, just like the regular 44, requires 50 guns and 6 strength in order to wield. It does good damage per shot, very good damage per second, has an average crit modifier, has good crit damage, and has less spread than something like the 44. It makes it about average with most of the other handguns. This one also, kind of weirdly enough, has less health than the 44. The regular 44 Magnum has about twice the amount of health that this one does. And if you throw the heavy frame onto the 44, it gets even more health than that. So the Mysterious Magnum can break a little bit quicker than a regular 44, but it's not so bad to notice that too much. And of course, you can modify this one like you can with the regular 44. This one is a really cool gun though, and probably one of my favorites just to carry around, if for nothing else than just to hear the music every once in a while whenever you pull it out and put it away. Then moving on to our number 3, we have the Ranger SEQOUIA. This is the biggest iron in the West. This one is a really cool gun. This is the unique 4570 revolver, or the unique hunting revolver. It shoots the 4570 round, so it is extremely powerful. This one also requires 75 guns and 6 strength. This one does not come with a scope. You can get multiple Ranger SEQOUIAs throughout the game, usually from Ranger veterans if you kill them and take it off of them. However, there are a couple of quests that you can do, like Return to Sender, where you can find one of these. You're not really given it as a reward, but you can get one of these throughout the mission. This one does the most damage per shot out of any of the handguns, not counting the energy weapons again. This one does really high damage per second because of that. It has a 1.5 times crit modifier. It does very high crit damage per shot. It has very low spread, so it is also extremely accurate, although you are using iron sights, not with the scope like the hunting revolver. And it still has pretty okay action point costs, similar to the hunting revolver. The Ranger SEQOUIA, just like the hunting revolver, also only holds 5 rounds, and it does kind of have low-ish health, at least if you're throwing the semi-wad cutters in it, because they can break it pretty fast too. If you're just using standard rounds of the hollow point rounds, it's usually not that big of a deal, though. It also is just one of the coolest looking guns, in my opinion, just because I love the black and the gold on it. Looks really, really cool. Coming in at our number 2 spot, we have Little Devil. Little Devil is a unique gun that you can get with the Gunrunner's Arsenal DLC. This is the unique 12.7mm handgun. This one requires 75 guns and 8 strength, so it is the highest demanding strength out of any of the handguns. If you would like this gun, you do have to buy this from Mick and Ralph's, which it can be kind of expensive. Most of these guns that are unique are fairly expensive, so they're going to be more of the late game guns, unless you just want to save up just for this one in particular. This one does do good damage per shot, really high damage per second. It also has a 2 times crit modifier with pretty good crit damage, and it has very low action point costs. It is probably the least accurate handgun that we've talked about so far, so it's not way great at being consistent at longer ranges. This one does hold 7 rounds, and it reloads fairly fast, so that's usually not too big of a deal. It also doesn't weigh too much, although it has a weird weight at 3.2, and it has okay item health. This does shoot the 12.7mm round, which is a little bit difficult to find in the early game. However, you can buy a lot of these from like the Great Khan Armor and a couple other vendors that sell them pretty regularly. Main downside to this is the cartridge itself, just like we talked about with the Survivalist rifle when we were talking about the top 10 rifles. You basically just have standard rounds and then hollow point rounds, since the unique version given to you by Handloader is just the jacketed hollow point rounds, which are sometimes better, sometimes worse than the regular hollow point rounds. Just depends on what type of enemy you're fighting. And they're not really the greatest against armored enemies. Now this one, just like the Survivalist rifle, does have enough damage that it doesn't really matter if the target is armored. You just have to be aware of that when you're switching through your ammos. And then at number 1, we have a Light Shining in Darkness. This is Joshua's unique 1911. This one requires 75 guns and 3 strength. This one does pretty good damage per shot, really high damage per second. Has a 2 times crit modifier, does decent crit damage, has extremely low action point cost, so it's very good in a VATS build, and it has okay spread. It's about average with a lot of the other handguns. This one only holds 6 shots, however it reloads insanely fast, so even though you do have to reload this one very often, that doesn't usually matter that much. It also is one of the most lightweight handguns, only coming in at 1.2, so it is affected by the pack rat perk and can be cut in half to 0.6, and it also has very high item health. Since this does shoot the 45 auto round, you can actually put in quite a few different rounds to this, similar to the 9mm. You can get the plus P, the standard, the hollow points, or you can throw in the super rounds, which can break the gun very quickly, but are extremely powerful and make it so its DPS goes really high. This is probably one of my favorite handguns in the entire game in terms of feel. I find that this just deals massive damage to basically everything. It is also affected by the grunt perk, which makes it so it's even stronger. Most of these handguns were affected by either the grunt perk or the cowboy perk, which is a bonus to either one of those, depending on which you like more, whether you want the semi-automatic handguns or whether you want the revolvers. Both are really good options, and of course you could always take both and use both these if you would like. These were my top 10 pistols in Fallout New Vegas. Tell me what your top 10 is down in the comments below, and tell me your thoughts on the handguns in New Vegas in general. I'll probably be doing one more list like this for guns, which is going to be going over all the other guns that didn't fit into the pistols or the rifles. So we're going to have shotguns, submachine guns, and some of the heavy weapons. That should be a lot of fun. And I hope you guys enjoyed. I will talk to you guys next time. Bye-bye!